Okay, I hope everyone that's supposed to be with us is with us. So good evening and welcome to the 22nd Docu Film Festival. We're honored to have P. David Ebersol with us and Todd Hughes, the filmmakers of the House of Carden. Respect. The webinar will last 30 minutes and you're welcome to leave your questions in the Q&A section and we'll answer them shortly after the conversation. So enjoy. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. I can't believe we're in Tel Aviv, just like
I know,
that.
it's so glamorous.
Let's all feel like we're all together in Tel Aviv and the beach is just here behind us and Pierre is sitting next to me here and we're all having such a great evening.
It's almost like being there.
It's all.
Well, we look forward to next year when we will be there.
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully we're looking forward to it as well. So thank you so much for joining us. It's really exciting. I'll start the conversation asking you a question that is probably everyone is interested about it. So why did you choose the House of Carden as the subject of your film? I mean, what was your connection?
It's funny because Pierre Carden tells that story in the film about divine intervention when he first came to Paris. A psychic had told him to meet somebody and he was lost. And the first person he asked directions from was the person he was supposed to meet.
Yeah, that's a great anecdote in the movie.
And as you heard, like Jean-Paul Gaultier and Philippe Starck, they just walk in. Carden meets them and says, "You're hired, go upstairs." And with us, it started because we were fans of his work. We moved to Palm Springs about 6 years ago in this house. You can see like the furniture we discovered and we started collecting it. And we'd grown up knowing the name, Pierre Carden. He's always been, you know, the luxury brand. We had his cologne.
Look, I brought props.
Wow.
We used to wear
a small bottle, a small version.
But so we were actually in Paris because we had discovered that Pierre Carden also had a record label, Les Disques Pierre Carden, and they were not released in America. So we were at the flea markets in Paris looking for them. And then as we were coming home, something drew us to the Marais. And before us was the Musée Cardin, the Pierre Carden Museum.
Which we had no idea. We didn't know there was a museum. We didn't know that there was even like a real man. Like we thought that he was a brand, and that at this point, if he had been a man back in the 60s and 70s, he certainly was no longer around. They were just selling the brand now. But we walked into the store next to the museum,
and the guy who worked there, we were showing him our house, and we own the car that's in the movie, the 1972 AMC Javelin.
That's a crazy story as well.
We just into this guy, and the guy at the store said, "Oh, Monsieur Carden loves to meet people who appreciate him." And we really were like, there is a Pierre Carden? How old
Is there a real person called Pierre?
Yeah.
and so he told us that he tends to like to go into his main store on the Rue de Faubourg Saint-Honoré, his women's flagship store, and he goes through like on a Tuesday morning, 10 a.m., make sure everything is to his liking.
And we couldn't believe he was still working.
Yeah. Still, and he told us at that point he was 95 years old. And so the next time we came to Paris, we just wanted to meet him. All we wanted to do was meet our design hero. So the next time we came to Paris, we flew in on a Monday night. We got all dressed up. We went into the store on Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. We were there because our documentary on Jane Mansfield was premiering in Paris.
Okay.
And so when we walked into the store, we were documentary filmmakers. We're working, we're here because our film is premiering. We're big fans of Mr. Carden. And before we knew it, we were meeting all the different people at the organization. So we met.
They probably knew that you were like fans and collectors. They probably knew your names, not from the documentary field, maybe.
Not far yet, like they knew that we were interested. We said we're especially interested in the furniture. They took us across the street to see the furniture store. But we met like Maurice Gaspard, who's in the film, the gorgeous model that worked.
So gorgeous.
Now,
She's that gorgeous and in real life.
She's so lovely.
She was showing us books and going like, "That's me,
Ça
that's
c'est
me."
moi,
And
ça
we're
c'est
like,
moi.
really?
Oh.
And then Jean-Pascal S., who's in charge of press, the guy who wrote the book that's at the beginning, and he is in the film as well. Rodrigo, the nephew, came down and talked to us. So we're meeting all the people who
And remember now,
characters.
We don't speak French and they don't speak English. So we're communicating with pantomime. We do schoolgirl French and they had a little, right? So, but we're managing to, I don't know what they're thinking we're saying, but they're coming to us saying this is a good time. Rodrigo said my uncle has never allowed anyone to do a documentary on him, but this is a good year coming up. So let me talk to him and see what he thinks. And if you guys are in Paris, give me your number and I'll text you.
Why is it a good year? I mean, what happened that year?
This was in our film. You can see it's the year that he had his exhibit at Sotheby's.
There was the Asseline book on 70 years of creation. There was the 40th anniversary of Cardin in China.
60th anniversary of Cardin in Japan.
I mean,
Film Festival.
Because with him, it seems like every year was full of so much, I mean, so many projects and so much creativity that every year seemed like, I mean, that was my next question, that I knew that so many people before have asked him to do a documentary and he refused to do so, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the first time that he gave someone an opportunity to do a documentary in his life.
And Rodrigo set us up to be able to then go and meet his uncle for coffee at about 2 o'clock that day, that very first day that we walked into the store. And we sat down with Mr. Carden, again, just with the goal of meeting him, getting a picture for Facebook to impress our friends.
Also, he's a very old man. So it was, he was very fragile and very frail. But there was so much enthusiasm. You could tell both of us were bursting, wanting to communicate. And
And
Does he speaks English, right? Or not at all as well?
He thought that he was telling us that he would allow us to do a documentary, and we had no funding or no plan to do one. So we were like, I guess we're making a Pierre Cardin documentary. I mean, you don't say no to the man who has never said yes. So
we were having a good time and we were scrambling. So we said, yeah, we want to do it in 3D. So we can feel the textures and see the fabrics. And Pierre Cardin was like, I love that idea.
Of course.
So
they actually just fell in love with you and decided you're the right.
It was like we were saying with Gauthier and Stark. He just looked into our eyes and just said, okay, you guys.
Yeah. What do you want to do? When do you want to start? Is what he said.
Perfect. And in total, how long did it take you to?
We actually know it was exactly 2 years to the day from our first meeting with Mr. Carden to the premiere at the Venice Film Festival, because we did take that picture that we wanted to take for Facebook, and it popped up on my phone at the premiere and said 2 years ago today. So it was
everything was like that. It was just
so exactly 2 years. It seems like it's so much work. It seems like it's the research because he's so old. I mean, I don't think anyone has such a resume behind him to cover. 2 years seems so little time to do all the coverage of all the.
We didn't know him when we first met him. He seemed like an old man, so we were like, oh, we gotta run. We gotta go as fast as we can, because we also didn't want it to be posthumous.
Yeah.
So full of life, we were like, this will be a great expence for us as well as him if he's alive. And we can do this together.
Yeah, that's what we wanted. But so yeah, we were working very fast, trying to get it done during the time that we knew Mr. Cardin could enjoy it. And then he wanted to premiere it at the Cannes Film Festival, and he was like, so the very next year he was planning a big party to celebrate and show the film at the Cannes Film Festival. And we were like, it doesn't quite work that way. I mean, maybe it does when you're Pierre. Hi, we want to play the Cannes Film Festival, but we were done. We were like, the movie's like kind of getting there. We had sequences. We had about 30 minutes of it put together, and so we showed 30 minutes at the Palais Boulle at his big, beautiful house. It has this amphitheater overlooking the sea, and it was amazing.
Probably was exciting.
Then we started to realize that in order to get ready for the Venice Film Festival, which is September, we had to apply in like 2 months. So we just ran to the deadline to get it ready to be able to show to them. We got in and we got to do the premiere with Mr. Cardin. He took the Orient Express because he will not fly. He won't. He'll drive, but he'll only take a train or a car to go places. And he took the Orient Express overnight and showed up. And he got a standing ovation when he came into the room. He got a standing ovation when the film was over. And we just had like a dream experience.
And he did all our press with us. He was a trooper. He was just great.
Yeah.
Was it the first time he saw the film, or there was?
First time he saw it completed.
Completed.
Yeah, that was the first time.
We sent him
A rough cut.
our rough cut.
Yeah.
Because we told him we would. He didn't have legally any say over the film. He gave us complete control, but we said we'd give him meaningful consultation because also we didn't want to make any historical errors or if we had details incorrect. So we were sweating bullets. We were in Palm Springs in a pool, knowing he was at Maxime's in Paris watching the rough cut. And the phone dinged and it was Rodrigo, the nephew, and he texted and he said, "My uncle Love."
Wow. Wow, you're probably like, you were so relieved.
Yeah.
Well, because we're also dealing with his personal life. And he was not very forthcoming about it. So we were kind of on our own doing our research and what we could garner from everyone. But I think we did it in a very respectful French way that he was very pleased with.
It's like, it doesn't go with his, he's like, I mean, the whole movie, I felt like he's such I don't have other words to describe that. I mean it in a nice way, that he's really a control freak. I mean, he has to have his hands on everything at all given time. He remembers all the little details. He wants to know everything happening. I mean, everything also financially and creatively. He doesn't, I mean, he's a one-man show. So giving you such freedom without managing you, like it seems like he's managing everything in his company and all the people around him all the time.
I do think that it's consistent that in general what he does is that he gives people their creative freedom. So he does want.
But it's still about himself, about him. So
I guess parentheses, right? Like, you know, that it's funny because we worked with Cher also. We made a documentary about Cher and her family. And you know, she's very magnanimous. She's very easy to get along with, but you know who the queen is.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody works for her. Everybody works around her. They all stay within a certain set of rules and lines, and everything's great. I've never seen Cher mad because everyone's happy, like, to do it and to do it her way.
But she said she never gets mad.
Right.
She hits even. No, but I don't see Pierre Carden ever get mad either.
Yeah.
But everyone is we're aware of, everyone is like daddies here, right? We're all, it's like a family, really. Everyone respects him so much.
And the movie is, I mean, in every episode, I mean, in every way, you see how much honor and how much you admire him. So it's, I mean, I can't see any other way than being appreciative and so happy he has this, I mean, for himself. You actually gave him his, I think it's the best present he could ever get before finishing his career, unfortunately, at the end.
Well, and the present he gave to us, and that hopefully we're giving to the audiences, that he really is an inspiring person.
Yeah.
After we met him, you know, we're in our late 50s, but he made us feel like our careers are just beginning.
Just the beginning, yeah. That's what I felt as well.
And like he told Jean-Paul Gaultier, tout est possible. Anything is possible. And he really believes that, and he made us believe it. And when we were premiering at Venice, you know, it was really hard because there was so much, and it was in 5 different languages and you know, we barely speak English. So
it's the amount of content was one huge challenge, and then that it was in all these different languages. We chose purposefully to make the film international and to let people speak in their own tongue if they were being interviewed. Because Jean-Paul Gaultier could have done English, Philippe Starck could have done English. Like we could have made the film more American, more in English. But we felt like it was kind of, he is global, he is international, and we wanted the film to have that kind of feeling. But then when we got home and had to subtitle every single interview and track all of that and track all of the different languages, and we had assistant editors who spoke all of the different languages, so Chinese, Japanese, French, Italian. It was challenging. It was fun, but it was challenging.
Very challenging. Does he speak Italian, by the way, or he's, yeah, he does? He understands?
Yeah, he actually speaks Italian in the film a little bit. He would go in and out with Rodrigo.
And
we did dinner one night, and we didn't realize it, but they were speaking Italian, and then they were speaking French.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I speak Spanish pretty well, and he told me he speaks Spanish, and so I tried with Spanish in that first meeting, and we were like, oh, that's not going to work either. Back to sign language.
It's a great challenge, and you did it perfectly. Another thing I wanted to ask is okay. Again, about him being in charge of every little aspect in his business. I mean, all the decisions are made by him alone, and he remembers each details as if forever, and he will never let go. A bit like all the famous circle patterns in his designs. I mean, that's what I felt when I saw the movie, like the never ending, and he describes the circles in his designs as something futuristic, from like a space oddity, something that will never end, something that it has continuity. So why do you think that the circles are such a big thing in his design? Why did he choose circles? Do you have any idea?
It's interesting because when our movie comes out in Japan in October, and he's very big in Japan, and so we've done all our press for Japan, and they were really curious about this circle affinity.
Yeah, it's something that's very, yeah, okay.
Well, he came to Japan in 1957 to teach at the Bunka fashion school, and it really had a huge impact on him, the whole culture. And, of course, the Japanese flag is that circle, and I think perhaps that is the moment when he started to see the infinite possibilities, because it starts showing up in his work at that point.
And even yin yang shows up a lot in his work, because you see the masculine and feminine interlocking pieces. So there's a lot of that, of probably some influence from those early years. That's 1957. When
Japan was the first time he started something outside of Paris. I mean, Japan was the first stop before India, before everything else, before Russia.
It was actually, he did his first license with the Takashimaya department store. And so that's why it's 60 years of, that's his first license. But something we just admire about Pierre is that he was such a fan of world cultures. And he would go to Japan, and instead of appropriating, he would celebrate the culture and empower the Japanese designers to do something instead of trying to usurp something Japanese and call it his own.
Yeah.
And then he did, very similar thing with Chinese culture and Russia.
Because there was a lot of cultural appropriation going on back in the 60s and 70s with design. You would have Yves Saint Laurent go over to a country and then create a line that was sort of out of that aesthetic. It's beautiful. But Carden tended more to be about like the influence back and forth. And there's
cultural exchange.
And there's something about that Amy Fine Collins talks about, with that the circle is also the globe, and that he is living in such a sort of universal kind of way.
He covers the globe.
That it seems to all just be so organic. It seems to be that circle is so representative of his thinking, of the way he does everything. It feels more than just a design element.
Yeah, for me, it felt like the circle is like it will never end. Like he doesn't have any continuity because he doesn't have any children who can take the
Yeah,
house
it
before them.
just seems like he will never end.
Yeah, it seems like when I finished watching the movie, I couldn't imagine the end of the House of Carden. You can't imagine it.
I think he will, for all of us, hold on. He never celebrates his birthday, but I think when he hits 100, he's going to have to.
Right.
When is his birthday? What month?
July
2nd.
2nd.
Yeah, July 2nd.
Okay. Okay, we talked about his reaction when he first saw the movie, so he was really happy and you were thrilled, of course.
And what was it that he said?
He was very cute because he did say the very first time he was impressed that we fit his 97 years in 97 minutes.
Yeah, that's another thing. How did you make it exactly 97 minutes? That was another question.
We met Robert Wise, who directed The Sound of Music and West Side Story, and it was the year Titanic was out. And I remember he told us, if you can't tell a story in 90 minutes, you can't tell a story. And we've always taken that to heart because, you know, you make a film and it's 2 hours long and you think it's wonderful, but really the more you pay attention to your film and the more you bring it down, 90 minutes really is a good amount of time.
The category of 90 minutes, we always say. Like, it's okay if it's 92, it's okay if it's 98, you're just trying to get it.
But because he was 97, we gave ourselves those extra minutes.
It's a great thinking.
At first, it was 3 hours long and fascinating. And there was a lot more, you know, there was a whole section on the record label, but it tired people out. It was just too much.
Yeah.
And I love him, but I hate him because he just, you know, what I love about him, I hate about him. That's that he just does everything. It
doesn't end. You have so much to talk about regarding him, of course. And did you discover anything, like, were you surprised by anything while making the film? Were there any specific details that you were shocked by or that you didn't know before that were like so surprising that you didn't?
Well, remember when we came to this, we were fans. We didn't know he was a real person. So we didn't know much about him. We didn't know what he looked like.
So we didn't know any of the major details.
Actually, you discovered everything while making the movie. You didn't come with anything before about him, or
we didn't know that he diversified the runway. We didn't know that he invented men's fashion. We didn't know
Jean Cocteau, Dior.
We didn't know.
Yeah, so all of that to extent was a surprise. I think for me, maybe the biggest surprise, the biggest left turn that I had no idea was coming was that whole fascination with theater, and that we knew he had a theater, and we knew that he had done things to support theater, but I kind of just thought his name was on it. Like, you know,
but he wasn't really involved in all the agenda and every.
We went to Lacoste and he sat in the room and he himself was taking a needle and sewing certain parts of the costumes, and he was overseeing and watching the plays and making sure that they were to his liking, and he was, you know, giving actual real feedback to the director. And that moment when he watches a rehearsal and he's so touched and he cries was just so surprising to me that he was that engaged with that part of things, because I really, you know, you often see that somebody wealthy ends up with their name on a building.
Yeah.
So you say the Pierre Cardin Theater, of course, he paid for it. He loves theater, but I would never have thought that he was that deeply touched and involved.
And also, you just have no idea when you're meeting someone of that stature. He's so down to earth. He is so nice. We'd come with a film crew and he'd want to meet everyone before we started, shake everyone's hands, and he'd talk to them like, what else do you do, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, wow, that's just extraordinary that this guy we're all here for him, but he wants to take the time. And whenever we eyes, first thing we do would be like, oh, merci, right? Thank you for wearing my tie. That means a lot to me.
Yeah.
He's very appreciative. You can see it in the
Very
movie.
gracious.
Yeah. And he's
The noble.
he wants to see all of the press. So like when we get written up in Vogue, or we get written up, in Architectural Digest, Fortune magazine, he wants to see all of that still. And you would think at this point he'd be like over it, like, oh, I've done 70 years of this, and who cares? But he loves to see like the progress, and
he does get a kick out of himself. Why not?
All the conversations are professional, right? He doesn't get any. I mean, the enigma about his personality is still an enigma for me. I'm sure I'm wondering for you guys as well, because it's an enigma. It's first of all, he's like he never speaks, even if people ask him about Jean Moreau or about his romantic. He speaks about it in a professional way. You never hear a gossip or hear something really personal. And his face is never expressing.
He says she was the love of his life. He says that he's very sentimental, and that there's a lot that he does reveal. And I guess what we've discovered in trying to get to know him, right? Like, who is Pierre Cardin is one of our questions. And he's not the kind of man, sometimes who he is gets answered by who he's not. So he's not the kind of man that's going to wax on about Jean Moreau. But the few details that he gives you, or the few things that he does say, you learn a lot. And we felt the same thing about with Andre Oliver. When he says he left us and with a lot of regrets, he doesn't need to say, I broke down in tears on his grave when he died of AIDS. I mean, you understand it. You know what he's talking about. And he's not the kind of personality that would give you that other side of the emotion. That tells you a lot about who he is, in my opinion. So there's the defining of somebody sometimes because of what they say. And then I think there's the defining of them by what they don't say. And he gives us a lot of that.
And he's had a lot of perspective on his life. The incident he recalls about being detained by the Nazis when he was trying to go to Europe, or to Paris, right after the war, that was a very traumatic experience for him, because they held him for 2 days and were trying to figure out if he was Jewish. And
in a recent interview that he did for the film, he said that was a huge turning point for him. But when we sat and talked to him about the incident, like you say, to some extent he gives you the facts of what happened, and then they let me go. But the tone in his voice, even, I think you can tell that's a turning point. And that's a story that he chooses to tell, shows you that it's a turning point. He's like that. Like he's different than somebody who will sit and, I don't know, express themselves. Even the moments in the film where he does give you that kind of emotion, like where he does cry a little bit, you realize
that's enough to understand what he feels about the situation.
But also he talks about his greatest failure in the movie, which was Pret-a-Porter, and everyone came after him. And what I love about him is that he embraces his mistakes as much as his triumphs. He never goes, oh, I'm such an idiot. He's just like,
it was the wrong thing to do. He never regrets anything.
And then my detractors actually oddly made me more famous.
Right. His notoriety
is what he talks about that. So he realizes like the positive and the negative. And we could have dwelled on it. We could have gone into it and said, oh, let's show you, how wrong he went. But it's like, so he went wrong, and his life didn't end because he used the power of what that moment brought him, and
to go further.
Went further within himself, even became somebody
improves itself.
He supported the arts. So you're kind of like, okay, do we need to knock somebody down a notch? Do we have to talk about it and tell you, like, look at the awful products that got made? I guess
we should all learn a lesson about that. I mean, all the the modern world should learn a lesson about how to use failure and just make yourself just make better and better of every situation, like
Yeah, it moves
Learn.
along. It
still
moves along,
doing.
right? So
You
yeah.
learn and
Okay, so I guess we're done. Unfortunately, I can talk with you for hours and hours. Yeah, but I'll hold my fingers that 2021 you'll be with us here in Tel Aviv. Not in a Zoom, in a webinar, not in the Zoom section, and
Right.
in a real place. And hopefully, you'll have a great premiere in Paris with you guys there. Hopefully, I'm holding my fingers. And you did such a great film. So thank you so much. I'm checking if any questions have been asked, and I see that none. So probably we covered everything. And
Off we go.
exactly. So thank you so much for being with us tonight.
thanks, Joanna. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
And giving us all your great inputs. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Stay cool.
You too.